All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
Phil, several deep, but we'll do them as quick hitting issues today. And the first one is, have you ever heard of ESG?
Why are you going to quick hitting already? We went from beating sticks to quick hitting, that quick.
All right. Have you ever heard of ESG?
No, I have not. ESG.
Yeah, it stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance. And just as an exercise, just as an exercise, I would encourage people to use a search engine like Google and just type in social credit score and see what returns when you use Google, and then go to a search engine like, if you haven't heard of it, called DuckDuckGo, and also type that in and just see the difference in what you get in your search results. And what ESG is it's really, those are three pillars, again, environmental, social, and governance. And they're three pillars of a corporate social credit score that businesses are, depending on how you look at it, either pressured or incentivized to abide by. And so you kind of start to wonder when some big corporations out there like to adopt policies, particularly around the DE&I agenda, that you kind of wonder what they're doing. And we saw this really come to the forefront with Bud Light several years, or I guess really a couple of years ago, and it has to do with this ESG. And the reason why I'm talking about that real quickly is just in the news yesterday, the Ford Motor Company has told its employees that it's going to modify its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and end participation in a notable ranking by an LGBTQ advocacy group. And what they've done with this then is they've really joined companies, including very recently Lowe's, Harley Davidson. I am hearing word about potentially Home Depot, in curtailing a lot of these DE&I programs. And their CEO, and I don't represent them, but their CEO said something probably that I've been saying for years on the program, Phil. And his statement said, "We are mindful that our employees and customers hold a wide range of beliefs." And so based on that, they're saying they're no longer going to engage with the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equity Index and various quote unquote best places to work lists, that it's going to refocus employee resource groups and open them to all of its workers. And so they're going to shift away some of their corporate sponsorships and comment less on polarizing issues. And so again, I just kind of raised that out there just to remind people how careful they need to be when they're wading into DE&I efforts. And just always be mindful that your organization, your customers, your clients are made up of myriad people with myriad beliefs, and it just needs to be done very carefully.
So, Burt, this is something that you've been talking about for over a year now. I mean, you've been talking about this for a while, about being careful and actually being inclusive, more so, versus segmenting these initiatives, particularly around goals and that drive behaviors and activity with the employer that then may have an unintended consequence. If someone is already down this road, right? How do we identify where we have risk? Is this something we really probably deserves a conversation with you and your firm? You want to see their policy. You want to understand where they're at. What should an organization do?
Yeah, well, I think the Supreme Court's decision in the Harvard case from earlier this year or late last year, I think it was earlier this year, on college admissions is really what's kind of spurred people to take a look at these things anew. And you just have to make sure that you're not using impermissible criteria to make employment decisions. And that's really what the basis of the Supreme Court's decision was with respect to college admissions. And not everybody, but 90% of the people out there who are in this area do believe that Supreme Court decision on college admissions has significant implications for the workplace. And so, again, I'm just encouraging companies not necessarily to abandon DE&I efforts, but to make sure that they're going about it properly and not using impermissible criteria to make employment decisions. And as I've said numerous times on the program, the law itself, Title VII, the primary federal employment law prohibiting discrimination, harassment in the workplace, says that you as an organization, you as a company, must make employment-related decisions without regard to any of the protected categories in the listed in the legislation. So race, religion, national origin, gender, etc. And so when you a lot of times when companies adopt DE&I initiatives, they throw that law out the window and they start making decisions based on those very criteria that the law says you should not use when making decisions. And so that's why I've just have always felt that this is an area that really needs to be managed very carefully.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Burt, we got about 3 minutes left here. What else do you have on the docket?
Yeah, just a really quick hitting one, Phil. Sorry, I used it again. There you go. Public support for unions has ticked up to 70%, according to a Gallup poll that was released yesterday. Approval for organized labor rose 3 percentage points from the last survey a year ago. That's nearing 2022 71%. That's the highest since which was the highest since 1965. And disapproval of unions dipped to a low of 23%. That's the low for 57 years. So the public views unions very favorably these days, but what's really interesting is that is not translating into higher rates of unionization in this country. Unions are still struggling to win over a meaningful share of the U.S. workforce, and membership has actually declined to a record low of 10%, and that's really been driven largely by losses in the public sector. Private sector unionization for last year, which is when the statistics are measured through, remains at 6%. So unionization, when you take into account public sector and private sector, is down to a historic low of 10%.
Yeah. And I would imagine, though, before that trend changes, if it does change, it starts with just the public opinion, right? So as it's becoming more popular or more acceptable on that tolerance scale, if you want to call it that, that's the first shift. So, as employers, we want to be diligent and be aware of that. I do hear more and more about high school programs that are working with trade unions to help build skill sets, and the offsetting rising tuition cost, and the alternative approach of, working with trade unions in order to, earn a great living, but not have tuition debt. So there is definitely a message out there that I think is resonating. And I'll take it even a step further. In the Republican National Convention, you had the Teamsters Union speaking, at the Republican National Convention, and that, that's unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. So you are seeing a shift in popularity, no doubt, and something for employers all to be aware of.
Exactly. All right. One more really fast one. We had a couple more topics, but let's do this one really fast. So taking a look at the lighter side, perhaps, unless I guess you're the supervisor who was involved here initially. The city of Atlanta's head of human resources was fired for abusing her power as a city hall employee by encouraging preferential treatment of none other than her daughter. This individual,
what?
Yes,
she gave her daughter. How does a human do that?
This human resources individual, she created a compliance analyst position with a nearly $52,000 salary, expedited her daughter's hiring process, even though she lacked qualifications on the job. And then get this one, Phil. Once hired, the daughter misunderstood the training manual's directions about having to be on site at work. And when a supervisor denied her request to telework after she completed her training, the daughter became disengaged and exhibited tardiness and absenteeism. In other words, she still continued to stay home and work remotely. And when the daughter's supervisor suggested firing her, the Department of Human Resources then launched an investigation into the supervisor, placed that supervisor on administrative leave, and requested disciplinary action against her, which was ultimately denied. But the point here is that the human resources employee, the head of human resources, lost her job because of what she was trying to do to benefit her daughter on the public dime. So just kind of a little bit of a look on the lighter side there, and just a reminder to employers, be careful out there, make good decisions.
Yeah. And be nice to people while you do it.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.